Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode where we explore everything that helps you become a more confident English speaker. I'm Anna.
And I'm Jake. Today's episode is all about something that's often not spoken, but still says a lot. We're talking about body language and gestures in English-speaking cultures.
Exactly. When learning a new language, most people focus only on words, grammar, and pronunciation. But communication is much more than that. In fact, studies show that over 50% of communication is nonverbal.
Right. And if you're learning English to live, work, or travel in places like the US, UK, Canada, or Australia, understanding nonverbal cues can really help you fit in and avoid awkward misunderstandings.
Let's start with something simple: eye contact. In many English-speaking countries, maintaining eye contact is seen as a sign of confidence and honesty. But too much can feel intense, while too little might seem like you're hiding something or not paying attention.
Yeah, in the US, for example, when you're speaking to someone, especially in a professional setting, you're expected to look them in the eye. Just don't stare like you're in a staring contest.
Haha, exactly. And what about personal space? That varies a lot between cultures, right?
Absolutely. In North America or the UK, people tend to keep a bit of distance. About an arm's length is comfortable in casual conversation. Standing too close might make someone uncomfortable, even if you're just being friendly.
Another common one, nodding. A simple nod usually means you're listening or agreeing. But be careful, not all nods mean yes in every culture. In English-speaking countries, a nod almost always means yes, and a shake means no.
Then there are gestures like the thumbs up, which is super common in the US and UK. It means good, okay, or I approve. But, fun fact, that same gesture can be offensive in some other parts of the world.
Same goes for the peace sign. In many countries, it's a harmless gesture for peace or victory. But if you flip it the wrong way in places like the UK, it can be rude.
Facial expressions are also a big deal. A smile is usually seen as warm and polite in most English-speaking cultures, but people might expect a smile when you greet them, especially in customer service or social situations.
Right, and fidgeting, like tapping your fingers or bouncing your leg, might seem nervous or unprofessional. In job interviews or formal meetings, staying still and calm gives a better impression.
Also, crossing your arms might be interpreted as being closed off or defensive, even if you're just cold or comfortable.
These are all subtle things, but they really do make a difference, especially if you're speaking English in a real-world setting. People may not always understand your words perfectly, but your body language often speaks louder.
Totally. It's like your body is speaking its own version of English, and learning that version can help you connect better, especially when you're still growing your vocabulary or fluency.
Let's talk about gestures while speaking. In English-speaking cultures, especially in the US, using your hands to emphasize your points is seen as natural and expressive. It shows you're engaged. But again, too much can be distracting, so it's about balance.
Yeah, and you might notice that public speakers or even teachers often use open hand gestures, like palms facing up. That's a nonverbal cue that says, I'm being honest, or I'm sharing something with you. It's surprisingly powerful.
And then there's mirroring, right? That subtle thing we do when we unconsciously copy someone else's posture or gestures. In English-speaking contexts, mirroring can actually build rapport. It shows you're connected, or in sync with the person you're talking to.
Exactly. But be careful not to overdo it or mimic someone too obviously. That might come across as mocking instead of connecting.
Let's touch on gestures that are often misunderstood. Like pointing. Some people from other cultures avoid pointing because it feels rude, but in the US or Australia, pointing is common when giving directions or referring to something.
Still, it's best to point with your whole hand in more formal settings. Using just your index finger to point at someone can seem a bit aggressive or disrespectful, especially in a professional environment.
Another one is shrugging. In English-speaking cultures, shrugging your shoulders typically means, I don't know, or I'm not sure. It's often used when people feel uncertain or indifferent.
Yeah, that one gesture can say a lot without using any words. Combine that with a raised eyebrow and suddenly you've communicated a whole mood.
Ha, true. And then there's how you stand or sit during a conversation. In many English-speaking countries, standing or sitting up straight shows confidence and attentiveness, while slouching might seem like you're not interested.
Plus, tilting your head slightly when someone's speaking to you can show empathy or curiosity. It's a little sign that you're actively listening. Small things like that can make your conversations feel warmer and more meaningful.
All these nonverbal cues can really level up your communication. They're part of what makes you not just a fluent speaker, but a natural, relatable one. Understanding the culture behind the language helps everything click into place.
Yep. Because even if your grammar isn't perfect, people will remember how you made them feel, and body language plays a huge part in that.
Let's not forget eye contact. In most English-speaking countries, especially the US, making eye contact during a conversation shows confidence and honesty. If you avoid eye contact, it might make people think you're nervous, unsure, or even hiding something.
True. But again, it's all about moderation. Staring intensely can feel intimidating. So you want to aim for natural eye contact, looking at the person when they speak and when you respond, but also looking away occasionally so it feels comfortable.
Exactly. And what about facial expressions? Smiling is probably the most universal nonverbal cue, and in English-speaking cultures, it's often used to show friendliness and approachability, even with strangers.
Yeah, in many places like Canada or Australia, people smile more during small talk, even if they don't know you well. A smile can break the ice or lighten the mood. It's a big part of how people build instant trust or rapport.
And let's mention head nodding. When someone's speaking, nodding along shows that you're listening and following. In conversations, especially in group settings or meetings, people who nod appear more supportive and engaged.
And even during video calls now, since so much communication is virtual, nodding, smiling, and good posture still matter. Even though you're on screen, your body language still communicates your interest and energy.
Great point. Actually, for learners of English, practicing these nonverbal habits can make a huge difference. You could even watch English videos or shows and pay attention not just to the words, but to how people move, sit, react, and gesture.
Yes. Observing how native speakers communicate physically helps you understand the rhythm and energy of conversations better. It's not just about learning vocabulary, it's about getting the full picture of how language is used in real life.
And with practice, these nonverbal cues start to feel natural. You don't have to force it. Start small. Try maintaining better eye contact or sitting with good posture. Then add in gestures or expressions as your confidence grows.
Another powerful nonverbal tool is the tone of your voice. Even though it's technically verbal, it has a nonverbal impact. The way you say something can completely change the meaning. For example, saying, really, with a curious tone sounds interested, but with a sarcastic tone. Totally different message.
Exactly. And the same sentence, like I'm fine, can sound sincere or annoyed just based on tone. In English-speaking cultures, tone often communicates more than the actual words, especially when emotions are involved.
This is why practicing intonation, the rise and fall of your voice, is so important. It helps your message sound natural, and people will understand your feelings better. For English learners, recording yourself can help. You can listen back and notice if your tone matches your intention.
Also, personal space is a big part of nonverbal communication. In English-speaking cultures, people usually prefer a bit more distance during conversations, especially when they don't know you well. Standing too close can make someone uncomfortable.
That's true. It's often called the arm's length rule. If you're talking to someone and you can stretch your arm out and not touch them, you're probably at a comfortable distance. But it can vary. Friends might stand closer, while formal settings usually need more space.
Let's also talk about handshakes and greetings. A firm handshake is a common greeting in many English-speaking countries, especially in professional settings. It shows confidence and respect. But during casual interactions, people might just wave or say hey with a nod.
And depending on the country or region, things like high fives, fist bumps, or even light hugs might show up among close friends. But as a rule of thumb, when in doubt, just start with a smile, a wave, or a polite hi until you see how the other person responds.
And if you're unsure about what's culturally appropriate, it's totally okay to just observe first. Watch how others act, and you'll pick up the social cues. That's also a great way to practice cultural intelligence along with your English skills.
Another gesture that often confuses learners is the thumbs up. In many English-speaking cultures, it's a sign of approval, like saying, "Great job," or "That's okay." But in some other cultures, it might have different meanings, so it's always good to be aware of that contrast.
Yes. And don't forget about facial expressions. English speakers use them a lot to express emotions, like smiling to show friendliness, raising eyebrows for surprise, or frowning when something is confusing or upsetting. These expressions often happen automatically, but recognizing them helps you understand people better.
It also works the other way around. If you practice showing your emotions through facial expressions when speaking, your communication becomes clearer, especially if your vocabulary is still limited. A warm smile paired with simple English can go a long way.
Totally agree. Even simple gestures like nodding can make a difference. In English-speaking cultures, nodding usually means agreement or understanding, while shaking your head means no or disagreement. These small cues make conversations smoother without needing extra words.
Another good point, eye contact. In English-speaking countries, maintaining some eye contact shows confidence and engagement. It doesn't mean staring, of course, but can be uncomfortable, but looking at the person while listening or speaking tells them you're present and interested.
And avoiding eye contact too much might come across as shy, unsure, or even rude, especially in job interviews or business situations. So practicing comfortable eye contact is a subtle, but powerful communication skill.
And don't worry if this all feels like a lot at first. Nonverbal communication, like language, improves with time and observation. Start by becoming more aware of your own body language and try mirroring native speakers you watch in videos or real life.
Exactly. Watch how they sit, stand, move their hands, and react. Then, when you're speaking English, try adding some of those same expressions or gestures. Little by little, it'll become more natural, and you'll look and sound more confident, even if you're still learning.
Here's another interesting one, personal space. In many English-speaking countries, people tend to value having a bit of distance when speaking to someone, especially strangers or acquaintances. Standing too close might make someone feel uncomfortable, even if your intention is just to be friendly.
Yes. There's this unspoken bubble that people keep around them. It can vary by situation, of course, like in crowded places it's smaller, but when talking to someone, especially in professional settings, keeping a little space shows respect.
And when you're learning English and communicating with new people, being aware of this helps you build better connections. You're not just speaking the language, you're also understanding the social behavior that goes with it.
Exactly. Another example is hand gestures during explanations. English speakers often move their hands when they describe things, like showing a size, direction, or a process. These gestures can help make your meaning clearer, especially if your vocabulary is still growing.
Right, like if you're explaining how something works, using your hands to mimic shapes or movements can support what you're saying. And it also keeps your listener more engaged, especially in storytelling or presentations.
Speaking of presentations, posture is important too. If you slouch or fidget too much, it can look like you're unsure or nervous. But if you stand or sit upright, it gives a strong, confident impression, even if you're nervous inside.
Yeah, your body often speaks before your words do. So by being mindful of your body language, like posture, gestures, facial expressions, you're boosting your English communication without saying anything extra.
And one last tip, recording yourself can be helpful. Not just for your speaking, but also to see how you look when you talk. Are you smiling? Do you look approachable? Do you move your hands too much or not at all? Watching yourself gives you great feedback.
That's so true. And it's also about being adaptable to different cultures. For example, while Americans tend to be more expressive with their body language, the British might use less hand movement but still communicate a lot through subtle facial expressions. You might notice that in the UK, people tend to use more polite gestures, like a slight nod or a raised eyebrow, to show they're listening or acknowledging what you're saying.
Exactly. And then you have cultures like in Australia, where they're pretty laid back and relaxed with their body language. They might use more casual gestures, and even lean in a bit closer during conversations. It's fascinating how body language can shift depending on where you are.
It really is. And when you're in an English-speaking environment, it's helpful to observe and pick up on these cultural nuances. It helps you connect better with people and avoid misunderstandings. Like, a gesture that's friendly in one country might be considered rude in another.
Right, and it's not just about what you do, but also about how people react to your body language. In some cultures, eye contact is a sign of respect, while in others, too much eye contact can come off as confrontational or intimidating.
Definitely, eye contact can vary a lot. In some countries, making direct eye contact shows confidence, while in others, it might be seen as rude or too aggressive. It's important to be aware of these cultural differences when you're speaking English, especially when you're in international environments.
And let's not forget about smiling. Smiling can go a long way in making people feel comfortable and welcomed. But the type of smile can also carry different meanings. Some cultures use it as a way to show politeness, while others use it more genuinely to express happiness.
Exactly. Smiling can be an incredibly powerful tool, especially in social settings. It's an international sign of friendliness, but the context matters. For example, some people might smile out of nervousness, while others might smile as a way to communicate openness.
The key takeaway here is that body language and gestures aren't just about what you say with your body, they also reflect your understanding of the cultural context. So, if you're aware of how body language works in different English-speaking cultures, you can adjust accordingly and communicate more effectively.
It's also important to recognize that body language can support or contradict what you're saying. For example, if you're giving a compliment but your posture is closed off, like crossing your arms, people might not feel as comfortable. So, aligning your words with open and inviting body language helps reinforce your message.
That's a good point. I think the best way to get better at understanding body language is to observe. Watch people around you, especially when you're in different environments. Notice how they use gestures, posture, and eye contact to communicate, even when words aren't enough.
Exactly. And when you practice, it's also important to pay attention to your own body language. Being self-aware of how you appear to others can really help improve how you interact. Sometimes, we don't even realize that we're giving off the wrong signals with our gestures or posture.
I completely agree. It's all about being mindful. Even something simple like not standing too far from someone, or avoiding crossing your arms, can make a huge difference in how you come across in conversations.
Right. And what's great is that you can learn these things over time. The more you interact with different English-speaking cultures, the more natural it becomes to use body language effectively and comfortably.
Absolutely. And the cool part is, body language is universal to some extent. For example, a handshake or a smile, like we mentioned earlier, can go a long way in making someone feel at ease, no matter where you're from. Just being aware of these subtle cues can make a big impact on your communication.
Totally. So, whether it's in a professional setting, social gathering, or casual conversation, mastering body language and gestures can truly enhance your communication skills in English.
And don't forget, body language isn't just about gestures, it's also about facial expressions. A simple smile can make all the difference in how your message is received. It can show warmth, friendliness, and openness, which is especially important in English-speaking cultures where people often use facial expressions to express emotions.
Right, and on the flip side, frowning or looking disinterested can make you seem unapproachable or negative. Even when you're listening, if you're nodding along or showing that you're engaged with your facial expressions, it encourages the other person to keep talking and share more.
Exactly, active listening is key. When you're engaged, it's more than just hearing words, it's showing the speaker that you're really absorbing the message, and that you care. And that comes across, not only in what you say, but in how you look while you're listening.
I love that point. And what I've noticed is that people tend to mirror each other's body language, especially when they are comfortable. So if you're using open, welcoming gestures, others are more likely to mirror those and respond positively, too. It creates a good flow in conversation.
That's a great observation. It's almost like a form of nonverbal bonding. When people mirror each other, it builds rapport and trust without saying a word. So, practicing that awareness and using body language intentionally is a powerful way to strengthen your communication.
And it's not just about the gestures we use, how we space ourselves from others is a big factor, too. In some cultures, standing too close might be seen as invasive, while in others, it's more acceptable. In English-speaking cultures, maintaining a personal space bubble is usually respected. Understanding where that line is in different contexts can help you avoid discomfort.
That's definitely something to consider. Personal space can vary even within different parts of the same country, so it's helpful to observe and adjust as you go. It's all about being sensitive to what feels comfortable for everyone involved.
For sure. And ultimately, just remember that body language is a tool to enhance your communication, not replace it. It works alongside your words to convey meaning more effectively.
Exactly. And one more thing to keep in mind is posture. Standing or sitting up straight not only makes you look more confident, but it also helps with clarity in communication. When you're slouched, it can make you appear disengaged or even disrespectful. But a strong posture signals confidence and readiness to engage in the conversation.
That's so true. And posture also affects how you feel internally. When you stand tall and maintain an open posture, you actually feel more positive and confident. It's a great way to change your mindset before or during a conversation.
Yes, and that ties into how we come across in job interviews or important meetings. A firm handshake, maintaining eye contact, and standing with open body language can convey that you're prepared, competent, and approachable.
Speaking of eye contact, that's another big one. In many English-speaking cultures, making eye contact shows that you're paying attention and engaged in the conversation. But, of course, there's a balance. Too little eye contact can make you seem disinterested or even evasive, while too much can come off as intense or intimidating.
Exactly, and finding that balance is key. A good rule of thumb is to hold eye contact for about 3 to 5 seconds at a time, then look away naturally. It shows you're listening and engaged, without making the other person uncomfortable.
Body language truly speaks volumes, doesn't it? It's so important to understand these nonverbal cues in English-speaking cultures, not just for casual conversations but for professional ones as well. Knowing when to use gestures, how to maintain the right posture, and how to connect with people through your body language can make a huge difference in how you're perceived.
Absolutely. Another important aspect to consider is personal space. In English-speaking cultures, people tend to value personal space, especially in public settings. Standing too close to someone, especially if you don't know them well, can make them feel uncomfortable. It's a good idea to maintain about an arm's length distance in most social interactions.
Yeah, that's a great point. In some cultures, standing closer is seen as friendly, but in English-speaking cultures, that can be misinterpreted as intrusive. But, of course, it varies by context, like in a crowded elevator, personal space might be smaller, but in a conversation, it's best to respect that invisible bubble.
Right, and something else that comes to mind is hand gestures. In English-speaking cultures, hand gestures are common and can emphasize points in a conversation. But, like everything, moderation is key. Overuse of gestures can distract from the message you're trying to convey.
That's so true. A small gesture to complement your words can help the listener understand your enthusiasm or emphasis. But excessive gesturing can be distracting or even come off as unprofessional in formal settings.
And even the way we use our hands can convey different things. For example, crossing arms might make you appear closed off or defensive. But on the flip side, open hands can indicate that you're being transparent and approachable.
It's fascinating how much we communicate non-verbally without even thinking about it. Understanding these body language and gesture cues can make a world of difference in your interactions, whether it's with colleagues, friends, or strangers. It really enhances the way we connect with others.
Exactly. So, whether it's a handshake, eye contact, or the way you position your body in a conversation, being mindful of these nonverbal cues can help you communicate more effectively and build stronger connections in English-speaking cultures.
Absolutely. And remember, even if you're not familiar with all the cultural nuances, just being aware of your body language can make a big difference in how you're perceived. As with anything, practice and awareness go a long way.
That's all for today's episode. We hope you found these tips on body language and gestures helpful in improving your communication skills. Don't forget to join us next time as we dive into more aspects of English and culture. Until then, keep practicing and stay confident.
Thanks for listening, everyone. See you in the next episode.